Hi, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to draw a hyper-realistic doggo using just a few pencils and a fur drawing technique. It's really an easy one and I hope you will enjoy this as much as I did. So grab your tools and let's get started. So I'm going to use my all-time favorite Derwent's graphic pencils for this drawing. You can use any other graphite pencil set you have. I'm going to use the following 4 pencils for this drawing. So it doesn't even matter if you have a complete pencil set or not. Just grab these 4 pencils and you're good to go. Okay, so I'm already done with the outlines here and I used grid method to draw these outlines. Showing the complete outlining process in a video makes it unnecessarily long, so I always upload the references on my Patreon profile. You can find the links of all the references in the description down below. So first of all, I'm going to take this B pencil and add the directional lines around the eye portion. These helping lines will guide us during the indentation process. Now I'm going to grab this indenting stylus and add the indentation lines along the helping lines you just added. I'm using this nail art dotting tool as an indenting stylus here, which you can find from any cosmetic store nearby. Or you can also use an empty pen for this purpose. And by the way, if you are a beginner and have no idea how to even start a drawing on your own, I would suggest you to take my drawing course first, because it is specially designed to help beginners like you to get comfortable with the drawing process, so they can execute a drawing project of any difficulty level on their own. After 2000 enrollments, I added my course in Udemy's sales program, and now it will always be on sale for up to 70% off for new students. So make sure you avail this opportunity and get your sketching skills polished. So once you're done with the indentation lines, grab this 5B pencil and darken the outlines of the eye. And also fill it with a base shade using the same 5B pencil, leaving this rectangular reflection and circular iris texture as it is. Now use the 9B pencil and darken this area. You can also use the Tombow Mono Zero Eraser to add the highlights or erase the extra shades from the iris, just like this. And by the way, the real-time video of this tutorial is available on my Patreon profile, link is in the description. Now use the 2B pencil and add the base layer around the eye where you've added the indentation lines. And make sure you add the strokes in the direction of these indentation lines. I'm also going to add the indentation lines in this left ear, because it's always a better approach to shade from left to right if you are a right-handed person. The only difference in the indentation lines here is that I filled the complete lower portion of the ear with smaller and thinner lines, and the upper portion where the ear is starting will have thicker and fewer lines than the lower portion. I added the thicker lines using the thicker side of my stylus. Now add the second layer of shade using the same 2B pencil. You just have to increase the pressure on the pencil and use the tip of the pencil to add these darker lines and shades. Notice where the shades are darker in their reference and fill accordingly. And also fill the ear portion with the base layer before filling it with a darker one. You can also blend the base layer if you want, it will work better. But it's totally up to you whether you want to blend it or just add the darker layer over it. I'm gonna blend the darker layer as well, because it will give a smooth and even texture on the ear, which is exactly what we need here. Now use this 4B pencil and add these darker shades in these shadowed portions and in between some of these indentation lines as well. And then you can use a Mono Zero Eraser to erase the shades from some of these areas, especially in between the darker shades. This will give you a 3D look on the fur. You can also erase the extra shades outside the outlines and add these faded lines as fur texture along the outline. And also repeat the same shading process for this right side of the ear. It's a little bit lighter than the left side, but the overall process is same. Now I'm going to use the indenting stylus again and add these indentation lines in this upper portion of the head. And also keep an eye on these bigger and thicker individual hair. Drawing a fur texture like this with indentation technique is pretty simple if you have full control on your hand movements and pressure techniques. But most of the people don't, and the only reason behind this is that they don't focus on practicing this technique. So many of you shared your results with me on my Instagram, and I've noticed two common mistakes which make the indentation look like a mess rather than looking like realistic hair, fur, etc. First one is that you guys always add these lines in random back and forth stroke manner, in which all the lines are connected to each other on the ends, forming a circular pattern on the ends of those indentation lines, which doesn't make the hair or fur texture look realistic at all. And secondly, even if the indentation lines are separated at the ends, their ends are not completely faded like they should be. The proper way is to add each single line individually and make sure that each single line is faded both in the start and in the end. I followed the exact same method for the remaining fur around the eye as I did in the left portion. The only difference here is this darker shade around the nose portion, which I added using the same 2B pencil. You just need to increase the pressure a little bit and that's it. Or you can also use a 4B pencil here if you want. And again add the highlights in between using a chisel tip mono 0 razor. Now for this nose portion, I'm going to use 9B or 8B pencil and darken the outlines first. Then I'm going to fill the nostrils with the same darker shade and surrounding portion with a 4B shade as a base layer. And make sure you leave this highlight area as it is. Now after blending this base layer, use the darker grade pencil like 9B or 8B and fill the whole area with a darker shade, only leaving these thin areas around the outlines of the nostrils. Now blend this darker layer and you can also lightly shade the highlight with the brush. Again add the final darker layer in the corner portions and outlines if needed, and then use a mono 0 razor to erase the shade from the highlights. And for this nose texture, I'm going to use this Jelly Roll pen and add these white dots around the highlight. And use a darker grade pencil to add these black dots in between the lighter ones. And also add some light white dots in this upper darker portion of the nose, just like this. This will make the nose look more realistic and textured. Okay, now moving on to the right eye, and first of all I'm going to darken the outline with a 9B pencil and then use a 4B to fill the inside of the iris, just like this, leaving this rectangular highlight and iris ring in the middle. And then you can use a mono 0 razor to erase the extra shade from this iris ring and make it look more realistic and shiny. Now the remaining portion around the eye is pretty much same all the way through. You just have to fill the area with directional lines or helping lines first using a lighter grade pencil, and then use an indenting stylus to indent the fur texture on the same lines you just added. Then use a 2B pencil to add a base layer on top of these indentation lines and obviously blend it with a draw brush. Then use the same 2B pencil with pressure technique and add these darker shades or lines in the shadowed portions in between these indentation lines. And in the end you can use a chisel tip mono 0 razor to add the white lines in between the darker ones, especially in the highlighted portions, just like this. Moving on to this whiskers portion, and first of all I'm gonna indent these whiskers using thicker side of my stylus. You can also use the thinner side, but then you have to use the pressure technique to indent more prominent and thicker indentation lines. And then fill the remaining portion with lighter and thinner indentation lines, just like this. Keep the pressure on the indenting stylus minimum here, because we don't need sharp indentation lines. Only the whiskers are in focus in the reference image, so we don't have to add sharp indentation lines in the background. Now after adding and blending the base layer, you can use the 2B pencil and add the darker shades in the shadowed portions where the whiskers are starting. If you notice closely, the darker shades are only in the areas where each set of whiskers are starting. so you just have to shade accordingly. And you can also use the 4B pencil in between if you want, but make sure you don't fill the whiskers indentation lines while shading the area. This specific area below the nose consists of sharp white and sharp black lines, so you can add these with a 4B pencil as well. Now use a chisel tip mono zero eraser and erase the shades from these indentation lines you just added for the whiskers. This will make them look more white and prominent. Okay, now moving on to the neck portion, and the shades here are really simple than any other part. You don't even need to add indentation lines. Just fill the area with a base first and then fill the shadowed portions with darker shades. I'm also gonna fill this mouth portion with required darker shades using a 4B pencil. But make sure you've added the required indentation lines in the lower lips portion before filling this area. For the neck portion, keep in mind that you have to add the shading strokes in one direction only. Don't fill the area with random circular shading. And obviously blend these shades with a dry brush afterwards. Now use your mono zero eraser and add these white lines in the same direction you've added the pencil shades. Just like this. The darker portions have less white lines while the lighter portions are full of them. This will give these shades a proper fur texture. Now I'm gonna repeat the same process of indenting, shading, blending and erasing in this right portion as I did in the left one. And for this right ear, make sure you add these thicker indentation lines in the upper portion and thinner lines in the remaining lower portion to get a proper fur texture with even shadows and highlights. And in the end, I'm gonna erase the extra shades from the indentation lines I added for the whiskers. Just like this. And with this last step, we're done with our hyper realistic doggo drawing. So I hope you enjoyed and learned something new from this one. If you wanna get the real-time video of this drawing, you can visit my Patreon profile. And if you're a beginner and want to learn sketching from scratch, you can join my course on Udemy. All the links are in the description down below. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.